Here are the top stories for today, July 22, 2020. The DILG reports decongesting of jail facilities amid the COVID-19 pandemic. President Duterte is expected to appear physically for his next State of the Nation address despite the risk posed by COVID-19. Malacanang says Metro Manila may be placed under stricter community quarantine after July 31. And the DOST looks for more participants in the clinical trial for virgin coconut oil as medication for COVID-19. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Almost 22,000 detainees have been released to decongest overcrowded jail facilities nationwide. The Department of the Interior and local government said they implement the measure to contain the spread of COVID-19. It says the BJMP is taking concrete measures to decongest our jails, such as improving and putting up more jail facilities and fast-tracking the court hearings of those who are behind bars. According to DILG Secretary Eduardo Año, the over 21,000 PDLs were released from March 17 to July 13 from 470 jail facilities across the country. Among the inmates who were set free, Año said, 409 were elderly, 621 were sick, and 24 were pregnant. As of July 15, the BJMP has recorded 180 active COVID-19 cases. These cases include 126 prisoners and 54 jail personnel. Año said 895 inmates and jail staff have recovered, while 11 have died from the disease. The BJMP is currently conducting targeted testing across 51 jail facilities and 3 BJMP offices. BUCOR Chief Gerald Bantag said 21 prisoners of the new Bilibid prison in Muntinlupa City have died from COVID-19 since March, while 5 prisoners are currently being isolated in the jail's quarantine facility. Malacanang says data privacy law is not applicable to inmates who died of COVID-19. This as BUCOR Director General Gerald Bantag earlier refused to reveal the identities of high-profile inmates who died of COVID-19, stressing that the data privacy prevents him from naming them in public. RA 10173, or the Data Privacy Act of 2012, protects persons from unauthorized processing of their personal information. On Monday, the Department of Justice confirmed that 9 high-profile inmates from the new Bilibid prison in Muntinlupa City died of COVID-19. One of the fatalities was JB Sebastian, a convicted kidnapper and car thief who served as a witness and co-accused in one of the drug charges against detained Senator Laila de Lima. The 8 other inmates who died of COVID-19 are Benjamin Marcelo, Jimmy Yang, Zhang Zuli, Jimmy Kinsing Hong, Eugene Chua, Ryan Ong, and Amin Imam Boratong. Malacanang on Monday said it will leave the investigation on the deaths of the 9 high-profile inmates to the DOJ.
Kinakailangan mag-report ang Muntinlupa kung sino yung mga detainees na namatay. And that, I think, is not covered by the data privacy law because they died actually not only because of COVID, but also died while in custody of the National Penitentiary.
The Justice Department orders the Bureau of Corrections to notify families of dead inmates. And a lawmaker is calling for an investigation on the deaths of high-profile inmates. More on these from Janice Cabe.
Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara ordered the Bureau of Corrections to exert greater effort to notify the families of the dead inmates prior to cremation. He also ordered the National Bureau of Investigation to look into the alleged deaths of JB Sebastian and other high-profile inmates, mostly convicted drug lords. Sebastian was a witness and co-accused in one of the drug charges filed against De Lima before the Muntinlupa City Regional Trial Court. He previously tagged De Lima as protector of the drug trade in the NBP during her term as Justice Secretary. Senate President Vicente Soto III was one of the lawmakers calling for an inquiry, saying the deaths and cremation of these inmates raised too many unanswered questions. Aside from Soto, ACT-CIS Party List Representative Nina Taduran is calling for a congressional inquiry to investigate the deaths, and if protocols were followed, she said it is alarming that high-profile inmates have been dying allegedly due to COVID-19 since May. In such cases, she said witnesses should be called to be present at the cremation, including a relative of the victim. Taduran also called for an efficient process of rechecking information with regard to the COVID-19 related death in the NBP. To prevent the further contamination of COVID-19 infections among inmates, the Supreme Court ordered the detention of newly arrested persons deprived of liberty at the PNP facilities. This is effective from July 21 to August 31 unless the local BJMP jails units are ready to admit newly arrested PDLs. PNP Chief General Archie Francisco Gamboa said the PNP can, in the meantime, accommodate newly arrested PDLs. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
The critical care capacity for intensive care unit beds in the country was downgraded from danger zone to medium risk. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said there are now more beds dedicated to COVID-19 patients at 50% capacity or medium risk. On July 13, Health Undersecretary and Treatment Czar Bong Vega said the country has reached 70% or the danger zone. Roque said 70% critical care capacity is still manageable, but hailed new data which showed that it has lowered to 50%. He said 665 out of 1,358 ICU beds have been occupied. 5,196 out of 10,553 isolation beds occupied, 2,013 out of 3,665 ward beds filled, and 503 out of 1,988 ventilator units being used. He assured that the country's hospitals will be able to accommodate all COVID-19 patients following the proposal of National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. to create 4 dedicated hospitals in Metro Manila.
Actually po, magandang balita ito dahil dumami po yung mga available na mga ICU beds at hospital beds. Po, meron na tayo ang PGH po, ang National Kidney at saka ang Quirino Memorial, no? So dadagdagan lang po natin yung mga COVID hospitals na yan.
Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte said protests will be allowed in the city during President Duterte's 5th State of the Nation Address or SONA next week. However, these should be within certain parameters. Belmonte said rallies and demonstrations on that day will be allowed because this has been the tradition.
It's been a tradition really since time immemorial na may mga demonstrators talaga pag panahon ng SONA. No? So, while coordinating with the PNP, we have come to the agreement dito sa NCRPO at saka sa QCPD na papahintunutan ang demonstrations provided that may strict adherence sa PD 880.
Batas Pambansa 880 or the Public Assembly Act of 1985 is an act ensuring the free exercise by the people of their right peaceably to assemble and petition the government for other purposes. Belmonte said those planning to hold demonstrations on the day of the SONA should apply for a permit from the local government as well as from the Philippine National Police. Malacanang earlier confirmed President Duterte's presence at the Batasang Pambansa complex to deliver his annual State of the Nation address.
He may be vulnerable, pero patuloy pa rin po ang kanyang trabaho bilang isang presidente at nakasaad po sa kanyang saligang batas na sa takdang araw ng buwan ng Hulyo, siya ay magre-report sa Kongreso at gagawin po niya yan. Gagawin po natin ang katungkulan, mabubuhay po tayo sa kabila ng COVID-19.
The Presidential Communications Operations Office assures that information dissemination on all matters of governance will be unhampered despite ongoing disinfection done in the building. This after an employee of the PCOO has tested positive for COVID-19. PCOO Undersecretary for Legal Affairs Marvin Gatpayat said the new executive building will undergo disinfection and swab testing will be conducted for primary and secondary contacts. As a safety precaution, work is suspended yesterday, July 21, and will resume on Monday, July 27. Despite the work suspension, Andanar said the delivery of essential and timely public information will not be hampered by this circumstance. He said press briefings of presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, which are regularly held at the NEB, will continue to be held virtually or remotely. Aside from disinfection, the PCOO has also intensified contact tracing among its frontline personnel to ensure everyone's safety. The employee who tested positive is now under quarantine. President Duterte has approved the resumption of Lotto games operation in areas under GCQ and modified GCQ. PCSO General Manager Royina Marzan Garma said Lotto games will resume on August 4 and strict health protocols will be implemented, such as physical distancing and the wearing of face masks. The PCSO will initially sell the Lotto 642 and Mega Lotto 645 games following its current draw schedule. The PCSO also started holding its so-called catch-up draws for Lotto tickets bought by bettors prior to the suspension of all the agency's games last March 17. Garma said they will finish all the catch-up draws over the next 15 days, which started on Monday, July 20, and will then resume the regular Lotto operations. Still to come, Malacanang says Metro Manila may be placed under stricter community quarantine after July 31. The Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao expects more recoveries from COVID-19. More on this when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Malacanang raised the likelihood of placing Metro Manila under a stricter community quarantine after July 31st. According to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, he was not discounting the possibility that Metro Manila might be under modified enhanced community quarantine if COVID-19 cases continue to spike. Despite the increasing number of COVID-19 infections, Roque said he remains optimistic that a stricter community quarantine would not be imposed in Metro Manila after July 31st. He expressed hope that Filipinos would cooperate by continuing heeding the quarantine and health protocols imposed by the government to contain the disease. More than 38,000 COVID-19 cases have been recorded in Metro Manila as of Tuesday. Malacanang clarifies that the president is not using Health Secretary Francisco Duque III as a scapegoat for the alleged lapses in the government's response on COVID-19 pandemic. Detained Senator Laila de Lima earlier said that Duque has not been fired from his post because the president needs a whipping boy. In a handwritten note issued from the Philippine National Police Custodial Center, where she is detained on drug-related charges, de Lima claimed that the president is letting Duque act as captain of the sinking ship. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque rejected de Lima's statement, saying he read the same papers and watched the same news as Senator de Lima, and he can tell that the president has not been treating Secretary Duque as a whipping boy. Roque, however, admitted that many have been asking him why the president has not considered blaming Duque for the health-related issues hounding the country. He said Duque continues to enjoy the president's trust and confidence, even giving him advice on how to handle criticism after making honest mistakes. In April, senators signed a resolution asking Duque to resign while questioning his handling of the health crisis. Several groups have also demanded the same after Duque was tagged in the anomalous purchase of medical supplies and equipment. Duque ignored these calls, saying he served at the pleasure of the president. Duterte has repeatedly vouched for Duque's integrity and took full responsibility for the order of supplies. He also extolled Duque for his competence, saying he would not have been appointed as health chief had he thought otherwise. Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo reiterated his stand not to allow face-to-face classes as much as possible as the start of the school year draws near. Go said he remains firm in his earlier pronouncements that physical classes must not proceed if there is still no vaccine against COVID-19. Go urged the Department of Education to pursue other modes of conducting classes that can still comply with health and safety protocols, such as safe physical distancing. He also implored schools and education officials to guide students as they adjust to new modes of learning, as most of the students do not own laptops or internet access. The senator also echoed the sentiments of President Duterte that while he trusts the IATF and DepEd's recommendation to allow face-to-face classes on a limited basis, this should only be done when all risks of exposure to sicknesses are eliminated. Go has called on the DepEd to lay down an action plan to address concerns of Filipinos in preparation for the upcoming school year. The Department of Education Regional Office for Bicol continues to accommodate late enrollees for the school year 2020 to 2021. DepEd Bicol said Tuesday that given the present situation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the agency will accept late enrollees until September. DepEd maintains they provide options for the parents to look into and decide the best option for the interest of their children. In a statement, DepEd Bicol Director Gilbert Sadsad said a significant number of students will continue their studies despite the abnormal situation caused by the pandemic. He said the numbers also indicate the strong support of the Bicolanos and confidence in the basic education learning continuity plan proposed by DepEd Bicol. More recoveries from COVID-19 are expected in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao amid efforts to flatten the curve even as cases exceeded 400. More on this and other news from the provinces from Marita Mawahe.
The Ministry of Health of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or MOHBARMM, said a total of 120 persons have so far recovered from COVID-19 since March 18 as a new positive case was reported Monday. Dr. Safrula Dipatuan, BARM Health Minister, said more patients have been recovering, an indication the region is moving to flatten the curve. The 120 recoveries are 30% of the total 403 positive cases in the provinces of Maguindanao, Lanao del Sur, Basilan, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, and the cities of Marawi and Lamitan. Meanwhile, the provincial government of La Union has placed San Fernando City under enhanced community quarantine from July 21 to 31. Governor Francisco Emanuel Ortega III has ordered local officials to ensure compliance to health and security protocols, including stringent limitation on the movement of people, imposition of curfews, and heightened presence of uniformed personnel. As of 12 noon on July 20, San Fernando City has a total of 20 confirmed cases. 5 of them are admitted to the hospitals. 8 are in an isolation facility. 1 is in strict home quarantine. 4 have recovered and 2 have died. In Bacolod City, the premises of the old City Hall were sanitized on Tuesday after an employee tested positive for COVID-19. The infected employee of the General Services Office was among those whose results were released by the Department of Health, Western Visayas on Monday night. Earlier on Tuesday, the DRRMO personnel also fumigated the Bacolod Arts, Sports and Youth Center, which houses the Bacolod Respiratory Outpatient Center. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muahe.
In our business news, 73 new economic zones have been added from October 2016 to June 2020. In a statement on Tuesday, the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, or PEZA, bared these 73 new eco-zones proclaimed by President Rodrigo Duterte in the first 4 years of his term invested a total of 88.3 billion pesos. 52% of the new eco-zones were information technology centers, 10 manufacturing eco-zones, 9 IT parks, 1 agro-industrial economic zone, and 1 medical tourism center. For this year, Duterte signed 12 proclamations for new PEZA eco-zones, including the country's first Knowledge Innovation, Science and Technology, or KIST Park in Batangas State University. PEZA has been pursuing the KIST parks as a new type of eco-zone that aims to create stronger linkage between industries and the academe to develop the country's human resources. Up next, IP leaders lambast the New People's Army for using an indigenous people's community as a human shield in Surigao del Sur. And the DOST looks for more participants in the clinical trial for virgin coconut oil as medication for COVID-19. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The Philippine Army and the tribal leaders in the Surigao del Sur town of Lianga have condemned the New People's Army for using an indigenous people's community as a shield following an encounter in Sitio Panokmoran, Barangay Diatagon on Monday. The encounter was part of a continuing operation after the NPA threatened to destroy the newly constructed Department of Education IP school and harass tribal communities in the area. The NPA terrorists reportedly fled from the encounter and mixed with the IP community, causing alarm and chaos on civilians. The rebels belong to the Guerrilla Front 19 of the Northeastern Mindanao Regional Committee. Hawudon Jumar Bucales, the tribal representative to the Lianga Municipal Council, called on the Commission on Human Rights and other rights groups to condemn the NPA's use of the IP community as human shields. In Zamboanga del Norte, government troops recovered war and propaganda materials from an NPA lair following a 10-minute firefight in Siayan town. The Army's 53rd Infantry Battalion said Monday's clash erupted while the troops were on combat operation in Barangay Pange, Siayan. No casualty was reported on both sides. The troops recovered an M16 Armalite rifle with several rounds of ammunition, medical supplies, personal belongings, and propaganda materials, including an NPA flag. The Army vows to continue pursuing the enemy who disrupts peace in Siayan and give chance and opportunity to the NPAs to return to the folds of the law. The Office of the Presidential Assistant for the Visayas and the Department of Health have collected a total of 321 bags of blood from various donors in Metro Cebu through massive bloodletting activities. Talisay City residents donated 10 bags of blood on Monday, while those from Mandawi City gave at least 110 bags of blood last Sunday. This on top of another 30 bags from members of the police force. A total of 171 bags were also collected from various donors on Thursday last week. Another bloodletting activity is set on July 23 to 24 in Balamban town. The DOH said the continuous campaign dubbed as Donate Blood, Save Lives, Be a Hero is a response to the rising demand for blood in the region due to the COVID-19 crisis. The campaign is also aimed at augmenting the supply in the blood banks, especially this rainy season where more dengue cases are reported. In our 4 news, ASEAN members convened with China, Japan, and the Republic of Korea as they committed to work together to respond to COVID-19. The 3 East Asian states affirmed their support for ASEAN's initiatives in promoting cooperation against COVID-19 at an online meeting of ASEAN Plus 3 senior officials meeting on Monday. Korea pledged to allocate $1 million for ASEAN's Fund on COVID-19 response. Japan will continue to support ASEAN to establish a regional center for disease control and response. China, on the other hand, committed to support ASEAN countries through programs to strengthen preventive medicine capacity. Nguyen Quoc Dang, Deputy Foreign Minister and head of SOM ASEAN of Vietnam, called for the regional forum to further strengthen cooperation to effectively contain and control the COVID-19 pandemic, mitigating its impacts and promoting sustainable development. ASEAN leaders also suggested China, Japan, and the Republic of Korea to enhance coordination in the research and production of vaccines against COVID-19. The Department of Science and Technology will look for more participants in the community-based study on the effectiveness of virgin coconut oil in treating COVID-19 patients. Secretary Fortunato de la Peña said most of the participants in this study with mild cases of COVID-19 were already sent home. De la Peña earlier said the target number of participants at the Santa Rosa Community Hospital in Laguna is 90. The DOST also planned to do a hospital-based clinical trial to assess the possible benefits of VCO if given to patients with moderate to severe COVID-19. This will be done at the Philippine General Hospital. De la Peña earlier said VCO has antiviral properties and has no harmful effects and toxicity. Following the success of the maiden drive-in concert at the Lawag Sand Dunes more than a week ago, the Ilocos Norte Tourism Office is bringing in a series of pop-up activities in the province's ecotourism destinations. To jumpstart local tourism recovery, the NTO came up with a socially distanced way of restoring its pandemic-hit industry with hyper-local pop-up activities. The series of outdoor activities aim to promote the reopening of local tourist destinations and help stakeholders generate earnings. On July 18, close to 100 nature lovers joined the drive-in concert dubbed as Ilocos Cordillera Drive Tour, a scenic mountain drive at the Solsona Apaya Road. Ilocos Norte Governor Matthew Joseph Manotoc encouraged locals to enjoy the province's scenic landscape but observe health and safety precautions. Last Sunday, it was reported that there were 4 new persons positive for COVID-19 in the towns of Pagudpud, Vintar, and Lawag City. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. The DILG reports decongesting of jail facilities amid the COVID-19 pandemic. President Duterte is expected to appear physically for his next State of the Nation address despite the risk posed by COVID-19. Malacanang says Metro Manila may be placed under stricter community quarantine after July 31. And the DOST looks for more participants in the clinical trial for virgin coconut oil as medication for COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check out more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day and stay safe, everyone.